All right, let's get into this. We tend to think that all our intelligence, all our thinking, happens right up here, in our heads. But what if I told you there's another command center in your body? A hidden intelligence that's in a constant, deep conversation with your brain, shaping everything from how you feel to the choices you make.
I mean, you know the feeling, right? That hunch, that deep down intuition that seems to bubble up from your stomach. For the longest time, we've just passed it off as a metaphor. But what science is showing us now is that it's way more than that. It's a real signal, coming from an incredible sensory network deep inside you.
And to really get a sense of just how powerful this connection is, think about serotonin. You know, the happy chemical that's so key to regulating our mood. Where do you think most of it comes from? Not the brain. Get this, a whopping 95% of your body's serotonin is actually made inside your gut. Yeah, 95%.
So here's how we're going to break this all down today. First, we'll look at the gut as our second brain. Then, we'll map out the communication highway that connects it to our brain. We'll also cover what happens when that signal gets fuzzy, how we might be able to restore that connection, and finally, what all of this really means for you and your health.
All right, first up, our second brain. It's time to stop thinking about our gut as just a simple plumbing system for digestion. It's so much more. It's an incredibly sophisticated sensory and neural hub all on its own.
What we're talking about here is something called the enteric nervous system. And it's basically this massive, complex web of neurons that's woven all throughout our digestive tract. This network is so huge, it has about as many neurons as your entire spinal cord. It can even work independently, running the show with digestion and gut defenses without even needing to check in with the brain. It's pretty incredible.
But, this nervous system isn't acting alone. Not even close. It's in constant communication with the trillions, and I mean trillions, of tiny residents living inside it. We're talking about the gut microbiota. This is a massive community of bacteria, viruses, and fungi that weighs between 1 and 2 kilograms. That's about the same as your actual brain. These guys are the real conductors of the whole orchestra.
And this diagram here gives you a great visual of how this community just explodes in size. So even though the labels are in Spanish, just follow along from left to right. You can see those numbers at the bottom. They just skyrocket. We start with maybe 100 units up in the stomach, the estomago. But by the time you get all the way over to the colon on the right, that number has ballooned to 10 trillion. It's this living, breathing ecosystem that's constantly changing.
So the big question is, how does this massive world inside your gut actually talk to your brain? Well, that brings us to our next section, the communication highway. And trust me, this isn't some quiet country road. It's a bustling, two-way superhighway.
This whole conversation happens on 3 main lanes. You've got the neural pathway, which is like a direct, high-speed fiber optic cable. Then there's the endocrine pathway, where these microbes release hormones that travel through your blood. And finally, you have the immune pathway, where the gut sends signals using your body's own immune cells.
Now let's focus on that first lane, the neural one. The main line here is called the vagus nerve. And this is what's really wild. We used to think of it as the brain telling the gut what to do, but it's actually the other way around. A full 80% of the signals on this nerve are traveling up, from the gut to the brain. Your gut is basically a massive sensory organ reporting back on what's happening inside, and your brain is just listening.
And let's trace exactly how that happens. So look down at the bottom here, you see the microbiota living in the gut. They produce all these different molecules that trigger cells in your intestinal wall. Those cells then fire off signals up 2 different routes, the via vagal and the via espinal, and you can see them leading right up to the brain, or cerebro, at the very top. That's the conversation in action, neuron by neuron.
Okay, so that all sounds great when it's working perfectly. But what happens when this communication system starts to break down? That takes us to section 3, what happens when this signal gets interrupted, when there's static on the line?
Well, the problem usually boils down to one word, dysbiosis. It's really just a fancy way of saying your gut community is out of balance. It's when the unhelpful, pro-inflammatory bacteria start to take over and outnumber the good, beneficial ones. The whole conversation gets hijacked.
And this image shows that contrast so clearly. On the left, you've got a healthy gut in eubiosis. Everything is diverse, balanced, and the communication with the brain is clear. But then look to the right, at dysbiosis. When you're stressed or sick, that connection gets frayed. The diversity of your microbes just plummets. Gut function goes haywire, and the signals being sent to the brain get distorted, which can mess with your mood and how you think.
And the consequences of this can be pretty serious. Dysbiosis can cause what's known as a leaky gut, where the gut lining breaks down.
This lets inflammatory stuff leak into your bloodstream, which can cause inflammation all over your body, and can even reach your brain, causing neuroinflammation. It messes with the production of those crucial neurotransmitters like serotonin, and it's been strongly linked to making symptoms of depression even worse. Now, I know that sounds pretty grim, but there is good news, and that brings us to Section 4, restoring the connection. How can we actually support a healthier, clearer conversation between our gut and our brain?
Two of the best tools we have are probiotics and prebiotics. Here's a simple way to think about it. Probiotics, which you find in stuff like yogurt, are like bringing in new, beneficial soldiers for your gut army. You're adding troops directly. Prebiotics, found in foods like garlic and bananas, are the food and supplies for the good soldiers you already have. So one adds to the army, the other nourishes it.
And the science is getting so specific now that we're identifying particular strains that are especially good for our mental health. They're sometimes called psychobiotics. Bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium have actually been shown to produce GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that helps calm us down. Others, like Fecamolacterium, can help fight inflammation. These tiny microbes can actively help lower our stress hormones. It's fascinating. So let's wrap this all up in our last section, the power of the gut and what all this incredible science really means for you day to day.
I absolutely love this quote from Dr. Emmerin Mayer because it just says it all, doesn't it? The gut is not like Las Vegas. What happens in the gut does not stay in the gut. It's not this isolated system. Its health, its balance, it all ripples out through your entire body and has a direct line to the one organ we thought was always in charge, the brain.
So here's the big takeaway. You are an active participant in this conversation every single day. The food you decide to eat, how you choose to manage stress, these things are directly influencing the quality of the signals being sent from your second brain to your first. You literally have the power to change the conversation.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty profound question to think about. As we learn more and more about this hidden conversation inside us, are we on the edge of a revolution in how we think about health? Could the future of mental wellness be found not just by looking inside our heads, but by looking inside our gut